Anywhere, it's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 6:30 p.m. today, when we will make way for national championship coverage. Very, very, very excited about that. Can I get an amen? Fantastic to have you guys with us. Here is how you can be a part of the show. You can give us a ring at 844-326-3663. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-FAN-PHONE. The text line is there for you at 71307. Simply start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. Coming up on the show today, our media mock draft continues. Philadelphia Eagles are on the clock with pick 10. If you're an Eagles fan or the fan of the NFC East, you're going to want to see what the conference champion, who the conference champion is going to select today. Glenn Irby from the Eagles Wire joins us at 5:20 to do that. We've got Chris Phillips for our typical Monday segment with him at 4:40 p.m. I cannot believe how badly Dawn Staley got out-coached in that semifinal game. Who is your first favorite college football player? If you think back to the first player in college football all time for you in what might be your very favorite sport, who was your first favorite college football player of all time? We've got onsides and offsides. We've got when smack talking is appropriate and when it crosses the line. We've got a preview of tonight's national championship game that can be heard exclusively right here on the Fan Upstate. Coverage again beginning at 6:30 p.m. this evening. And we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. But we open the show today with something unique and something different and something exciting for you to share with you. Okay, something exciting to share with you. And that is this. Clemson baseball manager Erik Bakich is scheduled to be joining us in 2 minutes' time. Scheduled to be calling into the show in 2 minutes' time. Look, there are a lot of pop quizzes in life. There are a lot of pop quizzes for you guys. If you have any questions for Erik Bakich that you would like to get in, now's your chance to do so. Didn't have a lot of lead time on this. You didn't have a lot of lead time on this. But they tell me Erik Bakich, Mark, can call into your show at 3:05 if you would like him. We made a couple calls on this last week, able to lock it down, just got confirmation today. And so Erik Bakich, Clemson baseball manager, set to be joining us just about 1 minute from right now. If you were scoring at home or even if you were alone, see what I did there? The Clemson baseball team has been taking it on the chin a bit of late. Let's be as honest as we possibly can be here. They are in last place in the Atlantic Division at 2-7 in the Atlantic Division. At the same time, it is Erik Bakich's first season as Clemson baseball coach, Clemson baseball manager. So it's interesting. They had the number 2 overall team in America come to Clemson over the weekend. And it's interesting. They did not win a game, okay? They did not win a game, but they were very, very competitive. So where do we come out on all of that? Where do we come out on how Clemson is faring and how they're performing as right now? Joining us on the show, right on time, and you can tell, it's always interesting to me how a coach does his interviews a lot like they do their meetings, right? If you're on time, you're actually late. Erik Bakich, the first-year manager of the Clemson Tigers, joins us right now on the show. Erik, we had the privilege of having you on last summer right after you accepted the position. We appreciate catching up with you today. How are you, Coach?
Oh, hey there. Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on.
Of course. So, Coach, obviously, the weekend series didn't go the way you would have hoped. At the same time, you're having one of the top teams in America come in. I understand that you're not a moral victory guy. I'm not a moral victory guy. But I always believe there are growing opportunities in moments like that. Are there positives you take away from this weekend series against Wake Forest?
Yeah, I think there's good and bad in every game. You can't just label it. You got to find the things you did well and highlight them, and then you got to find the opportunities for growth and highlight those as well. And those are the teachable moments. And from a positive standpoint, I thought Nick Clayton has really emerged as a bullpen ace for us. A guy that we can really count on and put in a multitude of roles in the back end, but he looks best suited to be the guy that needs to be in the game when the game's on the line. And so he's been very effective and was very effective this past Friday. And, we'll look to use him a little bit as tactically as we possibly can, put it that way. But he was definitely a bright spot of the weekend. And even though Austin Gordon had the misfortune of a couple of 0-2 pitches that were mistakes that got hit out, minus those 2 pitches, I thought he pitched very well, threw a lot of strikes, was very efficient, was attacking, was getting ahead. So there were some positives on the pitching side of things. And then, offensively, there were, of course, some bright spots as well. But unfortunately, we just didn't get the big hit, the big timely hit when we needed it, had the chance to win the game in our final at bat, the final 2 games, and fell just short and lost 2 heartbreaking 1-run games. But absolutely, to answer your question, there were some good things to take away, but also a lot to improve upon.
Erik Bakich, the manager of Clemson baseball, joining us here on Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel to kick off the show. You're mentioning the improved bullpen performance, and obviously that has been a key area of focus for the team this year, for you this year, Coach. If you think back, Erik, to the best bullpen pitchers that you've ever been around, is there a commonality among the mentality that they possess?
That's a great question. I'd say there's a commonality. If you're pitching at the end of the game, there's a few consistent factors that have to be in play. Number 1, can't walk anybody. Number 2, you got to have swing and miss stuff. Number 3, you got to be able to field your position because it could be a bunt situation late in a close game. And then number 4, you have to have that shutdown mentality that you are just going to go in and absolutely dominate with. And it starts with your body language, it starts with your mound presence, and then it just bleeds over into the way you pitch and the way you attack. But from a stuff and command and athlete fielding your position, I think those are 3 characteristics that you'll find in a lot of the elite closers around the country.
Coach Erik Bakich, head coach of the Clemson Tiger baseball team. Coach, Marc and I really love the new Major League Baseball timing rules, the pitch clocks, and a lot of the new things that Major League Baseball has implemented this season. From somebody in baseball who's devoted their life to baseball, generally speaking, what are your thoughts on that? And what are some elements in the college game that you think could and should make their way into the pro game? Some of the idiosyncrasies of college baseball.
Well, it's usually the opposite. It's whatever happens in the big leagues trickles down to the college game, like the elimination of the 31 move and then, reduced number of visits that you can take or counting the visits of a middle infielder or a catcher as part of your total visits to the pitch clock, like what you just referenced. So I'm totally good with the 20 seconds in between pitches. I think it's good to generate more fan enthusiasm for our sport, to be able to fit more games into a 3-hour TV window, which is what this is all about. I think that's great. I don't love it from a hitting standpoint to only get 10 seconds and have to be engaged with the pitcher at the 10-second mark, where a pitcher gets 20 and the hitters have to be locked in and ready to go at 10. Otherwise, it's an automatic strike. I think there's probably a balance there that can be figured out. That's been a big topic of controversy in the college game, with hitters getting struck out because they weren't looking at the pitcher at that 10-second mark. So I think there's still some things. Feels like the rules on this are changing every year as we're trying to. I used to be on a pace of play committee, and so there's everything was on the table, but it was all to try to get more games on TV and generate more fan interest and stop having 4.5 hour baseball games, which nobody wants. But I still think there's going to be more tweaks and more adjustments, and I'm all for pace of play and all for making the games go quicker and all for packing the stands because the games are exciting and fun to watch. And, I look forward to see what additional legislative rules continue to come to help promote that.
Clemson baseball manager Erik Bakich joining us here on Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Coach, we ran an informal poll of Clemson fans last week to find out what is the second most popular sport at Clemson. And congratulations, Coach, you won. It's baseball. Okay. Softball was third. Men's basketball was fourth. And my question to you, Erik, is, having been to Clemson baseball games, having seen Clemson softball games and their early success, how can you guys work synergistically with softball? Is there a connection there that can be used to benefit both programs? I love the proximity of both stadiums, and it would seem just a natural fit to have one program kind of help and buoy the other. Do you get the sense that's happening at all?
I think we just need to be intentional on staggering the start time so they just don't start at the exact same time. But I don't know how, Clemson softball, everyone's not following that right. What an awesome year they're having, 36-1. I've already asked the coaches if Miss Cagle can come over and throw some innings for us as well. No, they're doing fantastic and love watching their success. And we are actually on the same road trip, both teams playing at Georgia Tech a week and a half ago. And so just to get to know their staff and get to interact with their players, they're having just one of those special seasons. So, excited to watch them continue to dominate and, really kind of create that roadmap for us. That Clemson baseball at one point had some dominant seasons, maybe not 36-1, but certainly one of the top ranked teams in the country. And it's exciting to think that that's where we want to get back to, and to see softball doing it's pretty cool.
Coach, we spend a lot of time on this show with our audience as well, mincing words and deciding what we think about the football coach Dabo Sweeney's policy on transfer portal. What is your general feeling on the transfer portal? Are you an all-in, anybody wants to come kind of guy, or are you very, very conservative with the way that you plan to handle the transfer portal in the future?
We have been very aggressive, just going back the last few years at Michigan with graduate transfers. I love the graduate transfer because it's somebody who has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder, is what we found, because they're still in college baseball. They didn't get drafted. That's number one. So they have that chip. And number two, it's their last shot at being a part of a winner. And so usually the last few years that we've had the grad transfer, the guys that have experience, that have credentials at the Division I level, that have been good players from winning programs, that want to be a part of a winner and will do whatever it takes to be a part of a winner. So I could see us gravitating to those guys, to continue to gravitate to those guys, but we wouldn't not look at some younger guys as well. I think if it made sense for us, we certainly would do that. And we've already talked internally as a staff about, needing some bullpen pieces out of the portal this summer. That's something that we're definitely going to target, as well as maybe some other needs as well. But we're not going to shy away from it, and we're not going to not take anybody that would be a good fit for our program and the culture we're trying to build. But we're not going to rely on it for building the program either. We're going to continue to build this program with high school players and develop them. But we will absolutely utilize the portal to supplement and fill gaps and plug holes wherever we see fit.
And, of course, Notre Dame, strong use of the graduate player. Upperclassmen led to the massive upset over Tennessee last season. So that's a point well stated, Coach. Your family and you, Coach, adjusting to life in the Upstate. Can I get some of Erik Bakich's Upstate favorites? Favorite places to go, favorite things to see, maybe favorite place to eat?
My favorite place to go is Doug Kingsmore Stadium.
Yeah,
that's about the only place I go. So, family's doing great. Thanks for asking. Everyone's doing great. Kids are going to school here in town. I got 2 at Clemson Elementary and 1 at R.C. Edwards Middle School. They're all busy doing the after-school sports and activities. And, my poor wife is running that hamster wheel like crazy, like I know a lot of moms do out there. And but all is good. You know, I just been blown away by how much Clemson has grown, and you know, the more places to eat, the buildings that have been built on this campus, the way the city is just, you know, it just feels like you know, I was here 21 years ago. It was a long time ago, but it just feels so much bigger than it was back then. And a lot of that is a testament to what Dabo and the football program have done to make Clemson and the Tiger Paw a global brand and a destination school for a lot of people. So it's awesome. We love it. We love living here. We love being here. We love immersing ourselves in the local community. And yeah, no, unfortunately, you know, this time of year, I haven't really had a huge opportunity to venture out and try all the spots. But we get out, we get around as much as we can.
Erik Bakich, ladies and gentlemen, Clemson baseball manager. Erik, we can see your vision for Clemson baseball coming into focus. We ask the fans for some patience, as I'm sure you do as well, but we can absolutely see your vision and your style of play, you putting your imprint on this team, and we're watching moving forward. Really great to catch up with you, and thanks so much for making the time. Good luck the rest of the way.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. I don't blame the fans for not having any patience. We don't have any either. I don't have any patience. Never had any patience. So, but we're going to get this thing turned around quicker, a whole lot sooner rather than later. And we're getting close. We're getting better, and we're right there. We're right on the verge. So I'm 100% in belief that this is going to happen this year, and we're going to go on a really awesome run and surprise some people when we do, because this team is already battle tested in this first half of this season. We have really calloused our minds and been through the grinder, so to speak, with all these close ball games. And we're going to get it there. We will get it there. And Clemson fans will have a lot to be excited about in the sport of baseball.
We look forward to the next chat, Coach. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care. Erik Bakich, Clemson baseball manager, opening the show with us here today on Offsides, the Fan Upstate. And, you know, like, what I really appreciate, okay, is I sent an email to Brian Hennessy, who runs Clemson baseball, PR. I get an email right back, and it's not maybe after the season or maybe after this. It's how's Monday at 3:05. And it's like, perfect. That is fantastic. And, you know, I respect the fact if people are too busy to do it, if they're not doing things till after the season. But to get Coach Erik Bakich in the middle of the season, when time is his most valuable resource, you heard him say, I haven't had time to do anything, but he's making time for us, you know? And
yeah, it's really nice to see people who are accommodating to you. Obviously he's new here. He needs as much positive PR as he can get right now, especially with the team not performing the way that they really wanted to. So look, this is an opportunity for him to ingratiate himself to local media. This is a way for him to ingratiate himself to the Clemson Tiger fan base that's listening on the air right now. It's a great thing when people are easy to work with.
Absolutely.
Because we have a few that are not so easy to work with.
There's not mention any names, but there's absolutely a few in the state of South Carolina that are less easy to get on and less easy to work with. So we appreciate Erik Bakich, and we appreciate Brian Hennessy and all the good folks at Clemson baseball for making this possible, for making that a reality. And we hope you enjoyed it as well. Coming up next, we open the show with peace. The peace treaty ends right now. What the hell was that over the weekend in the women's basketball tournament? It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Listen on the Odyssey app. Search the Fan Upstate.
It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until 6:30 p.m. today for our national championship coverage. UConn against San Diego State. Does the mid-major, can you call San Diego State a mid-major? Do they have a chance?
I mean, it's a bigger school than Clemson. It's 33,000 students.
Playing the Mountain West. Never been to the Final Four. Incredible team, incredible run. My heart absolutely was destroyed for Florida Atlantic. Lowest seed ever to win the tournament, an 8th seed. Florida Atlantic led that game the entire way. And folks, in the second half, I looked at the win probability chart on my phone, and Florida Atlantic had a 94% chance to win when they were up by 14 points in the second half.
Man, it can be such a frustrating thing when you watch your team on the wrong end of a run. It's just, it's heartbreaking. It's gut-wrenching to watch. You're like, these guys got up big. Did they suddenly forget how to play basketball? What happened? It's brutal for those guys.
It came right down to the end. Last second shot, San Diego State with a win, man. But if there is a shining light, I think the Aztecs are the one team that has a shot against UConn with the way they're playing right now. Much more on the men's national championship game coming your way. But folks, the Lady Gamecocks, you know, it's interesting. Is a bigger story Caitlin Clark in the final game or what happened to South Carolina in the Final Four? And I always believe in spinning things local and going to the Final Four. Folks, I cannot believe how badly Dawn Staley was outcoached in that Final Four game. Like, I legitimately can't believe what I saw, right? The entire game from beginning to end. You know, oftentimes if you listen closely to a coach's peers, they'll let you know what they think about a given coach. And yesterday, Kim Mulkey, LSU's head women's basketball coach, was asked, okay, well, you know, South Carolina destroyed you guys 88-64. That happened 6 weeks ago. Destroyed South Carolina, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, South Carolina destroyed LSU 88-64. A team they destroyed 2 days before Valentine's Day is now the national champion, is now the undisputed and unquestioned best team in all of women's college basketball. That LSU Tigers basketball team that fell to South Carolina 88-64. So Kim Mulkey said, well, wait a minute, how are you going to beat Iowa? And she said before the game, South Carolina didn't take the shots Iowa gave them. We will. Did they ever? 59 points in the first half, Diesel. LSU had a player last night that had 21 points in the first half, did not score a single point in the previous 3 games that LSU played. If a player that doesn't score a single point scores 21 in the first half, that's game, set, match.
Yeah, they found something that. How did South Carolina not see it? How did South Carolina not exploit that?
LSU shot 33% from 3 for the season. They shot 60% for the game against Iowa. And the Gamecocks have got to be kicking themselves, especially considering the fact that LSU can't beat that South Carolina team. So it's like, well, Kim Mulkey's like, we're going to take the shots that South Carolina didn't. But Kim Mulkey, you have players that can shoot the outside shot. How did Iowa figure that out and you not? And so it was really something to me because from right at the very beginning of that game, LSU looked like the better team. LSU looked like the more athletic team. LSU looked like the team that had more WNBA players on it, right? From beginning to end, they looked like a much better team. It was like if Caitlin Clark doesn't go all hero ball, then Iowa cannot win this game. And then you factor in the officials and the bad calls and everybody being in foul trouble and bogus technical fouls. All of that just highlighted Iowa's lack of depth, right? Iowa has a great scorer, Caitlin Clark. Iowa has a great center who averaged 21 points a game. But LSU was just a much better team. I just keep coming back to the fact that Dawn Staley got abused from a coaching standpoint. Folks, every single time on Friday night that Caitlin Clark beat the first defender, she had a clear path to a layup. Where was the help? There was never any help. If you've got Caitlin Clark and you're taking away what she does best, like if you're playing Steph Curry, Diesel, how are you defending Steph Curry? You're up in his mug, right?
Yeah.
You're up in his mug because
if you give him space, he's going to hit those long-range threes from literally anywhere. And I saw it at least 3 or 4 times. Caitlin Clark with the right hand would drive on the outside of the edge of the lane, and South Carolina's defense was not shifting to push her out. Like they just let her drive right around in an arc straight to the basket over and over and over again.
Every single time. And so, number one, you're obviously going to be using bump coverage, right? To use a football term on Caitlin Clark. You're giving her no space. Her only recourse is going to be to drive by you. And when she gets by you, then what is your plan? Straight to the basket every time? Where is the rotation? Where is the help? After that happened twice, I'd be calling a timeout. And yet I saw that the whole game. When you guys listen to this show frequently, you'll often hear me say, Charles Barkley, I think, is the best analyst in all of sports. He's the best analyst in sports history. What's one of Charles Barkley's tenets if you watch him frequently? He always says, I'm sorry, I can't believe they're playing him this way. I can't believe they're playing Donovan Mitchell this way. If I'm playing him, I'm not going to let him beat me. He's going to be trapped. He's going to have 2 people on him every single time he touches the ball. And Charles Barkley is saying that at a game played at the NBA level where you can pass out of a double team to open teammates. And Charles Barkley says, I don't care. That player is not going to beat me. I remember that distinctly when they played in the bubble, and it was a playoff series between Jamal Murray in Denver and Donovan Mitchell in Utah. And Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell were going for 40 points in every single game. And he's like, I don't get this. Iowa scored 77 points. Okay? Iowa scored 77 points against the South Carolina Gamecocks. And Caitlin Clark was responsible for 41 of them. How do you let that happen? You know what I mean? Like, no one on the other team is doing squat. Zanano put up 18 points, but, essentially, if you take Caitlin Clark off that Iowa Hawkeyes team, South Carolina beats Iowa just like they beat everybody else. It's 73-40, 73-50. They destroy it if you take her off the team. So you know what I'm doing? I'm taking her off the team. We're going to be trapping you and doubling you every single time. I could not believe what I was seeing. Now, did LSU double Caitlin Clark all night long yesterday? They did not. But what did they do? Every single time Caitlin Clark got around the first defender, another defender stepped up. Caitlin Clark had to get rid of the basketball. Given the length of LSU, a lot of times those passes were deflected. A lot of times those passes were intercepted. But, Dawn Staley allowed Caitlin Clark, the Steph Curry of women's basketball, to play one-on-one against her entire team the entire game. And for a coach that is lauded as being the face of women's basketball and a legend. And Diesel, does she have a statue already at South Carolina, or is one going up? I don't know the answer to that. Does she have a statue already, or is one going up? I don't know. I know she's got one going up if there isn't one up already. I could not believe the amateur defensive plan that South Carolina had for Caitlin Clark. You can't throw up your hands and say, oh, what are you going to do? She's amazing. What are you going to do? She's simply unbelievable. I don't know what you want us to do. You got to have a better defensive plan than that. How do you explain that Caitlin Clark averaged 27 points a game in the regular season and 41 points against the best defensive team in America? How do you explain that? You know, like it was just, I was beside myself. And then I'm like, okay, where's the adjustment? Then at halftime, where's the adjustment? No adjustment. If you're a Gamecock fan, were you watching this saying the same thing I was? I'm like, this can't be their plan. This can't be what they think is their best option to beat Iowa. Because Iowa is the closest thing to a one-woman team as exists. You know, like you cut off the head of the beast. What's left? Diesel, I was beside myself for Gamecock fans that was the plan against Caitlin Clark.
Well, and we've got texters here saying, well, Boston was on the bench for a lot of the game. Even when Boston was in the game, she was letting Caitlin Clark drive right past her. So, like, it's like, did somebody put weights in the South Carolina players' shoes? Because they were moving awfully slow out of that paint. It felt like they had the mentality of she's not going to drive right down the paint, right down the middle of the paint on us. So we're going to force her outside. But after that, they had nothing. They had no idea what to do.
Folks, did you take note of what, outside of the interview, which was agreed to ahead of time, Erik Bakich, Clemson baseball manager, what sports led the show today? There's a method to our madness, and I'm going to get into that. There was something that I said over the weekend, and I didn't realize that this was starting a war. And I have a pretty obvious observation over the weekend. I can't wait to share it with you next. We'll see where you guys come out on it. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. I still cannot believe that a coach of Dawn Staley's pedigree had nothing for Caitlin Clark. Nothing whatsoever. Mind blown. It's Offsides right here on the Fan Upstate. Yeah, so folks, I didn't realize this was going to start World War III. All right. And I'm going to share that with you in just a moment. But let's catch up with some of the comments you guys are chiming in. Trey Davis on the YouTube page says that Clemson baseball coach seems like someone to root for. Did you see the buzzer beater by San Diego State? I'm kind of rooting for them because they beat Furman. Exactly, Trey. That's been my MO the whole time. And it's made me feel better about Furman's loss. It's like, man, had they not played this team, how far could they have gone? You could say that Furman only got beaten by the eventual national champion. 100%. Stephen Webb on YouTube says, what's up, fellas? Wondering how to watch the show on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen? How you doing? The Fan Upstate on YouTube. Very simple. Just go right there, and you'll see us live and in living color.
Every single day. This is great. What's up to Brian Reshley, who recently followed us on YouTube. Here's another one, a name that I Rushmanto Kachon.
We appreciate you, Rushmanto. We appreciate you. The ladies, by the way, are flocking to YouTube. They're flocking to YouTube for Diesel. They're tolerating me. So that's how we're doing right now. It must be the beard. It must be the beard from Diesel here today. On the text line, let's see what you guys are saying here on the text line here today. Let's see here, Mark. You better not say anything bad about Dawn Staley, or she and the Shamecock fans will call you a racist.
You know, it's weird. There is a prevailing issue between, so far now, two, could be more, we don't know, South Carolina coaches who get real up in their feelings in media interviews. And I'm not saying that it's not always justified. I'm not saying that whatsoever, but we know Shane Beamer gets real testy sometimes. And we've seen several times Dawn Staley go into post-game interviews where things got real chippy.
Oh, she did. She absolutely did. She got pretty chippy yesterday. Diesel, let me know if you can locate that. But Dawn Staley did get chippy yesterday during the post-game press conference. And look, guys, the reality is, I do. It's hard because it's like, you know, is Dawn Staley a great college basketball coach? She seems to be. But a great college basketball coach had a very amateur day, where it was like, you know, like, what do you do if one player keeps driving past you for layups? You know, like, you have to have an adjustment for that. You know, whether it be a 1-3-1 zone or a trap or a double team or you're rotating help over, like, there's got to be an answer for that. And I'll never be able to understand how the Gamecocks did nothing the entire game about that. You know, how does a player averaging 27 points a game average 41 against you when you are the best defensive team in the country? How do you allow one person to beat you, scoring 41 of the 77 points on the total team? Caitlin Clark was responsible for 53% of her team's points. How do you let that happen, ladies and gentlemen? Texter says, Mark, last Thursday, I thought there was a 75% chance the Gamecocks winning another national championship this year. Now with the Gamecocks losing in women's basketball, what's the opportunity of the Gamecocks winning a national championship in any other sports? 10 to 15%? Yeah, I mean, I can't say I know how, you know, the Gamecocks rank in men's tennis, women's soccer. I can't say I know all that stuff off the top of my head, but baseball would seem to be a good opportunity. That was their best opportunity, however. By the way, tomorrow on the show, I'm going to get to something that should absolutely enrage Clemson fans, okay? This is not Mark stirring the pot or Mark starting trouble or anything of the sort. It's just something that I noticed today that I literally couldn't believe. My mind was blown when I took a piece of information in today.
You know, I've noticed recently, Mark, how many people accuse anyone, you, of stirring the pot constantly. You're a pot stirrer. I've seen it lots of times. But these people are all on apps that specifically show them things that are going to make them angry. Like the algorithms, they know what's going to make people angry. They know what they're getting the most comments on, and they're going to show that to more and more people. So it's funny that social media in general is a platform where people love to get angry about things, and then they complain because while they're there, they get angry. Well, that's a you problem, bro. That's your inability to handle the information that you're reading and not process it in an adult way, in a healthy way.
Texter says, Mark, if Caitlin Clark transferred to South Carolina, would she have to learn to play in the post and leave the three-pointers alone? Yeah, remember, Kim Mulkey said, here's how we're going to beat Iowa. We're going to take the shots that South Carolina wouldn't. Like, that is a damning indictment of Dawn Staley, isn't it? Like, what? We're going to take the shots that they wouldn't, and you're going to have a much better defensive plan for Caitlin Clark. Texter says, Mark, LSU and Ohio State were 1 for 37 from 3 in the Elite Eight. LSU shooting yesterday was an anomaly. Congrats, though. Okay, yeah, it was an anomaly yesterday, but what about the defensive plan for Caitlin Clark? The non-existent defensive plan for Caitlin Clark. Texter says, I knew when Aaliyah Boston got those 2 fouls, we, South Carolina, were in trouble. That took Carolina completely out of their game plan. That team runs through her. So says Spur Daddy. I cannot believe that Coach Staley kept Boston on the bench basically the whole first half after she got those first 2 fouls. Texter says, Mark, did you say LSU was driving Bayou? See what he did there? Bayou, B-A-Y-O-U.
We don't have that sound effect. We got a lot of sound effects, but we don't have that one.
We do it every time, baby. Yeah, so guys, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. I do not believe, I don't agree with the current culture in sports that you can never be critical of your own coach or your own your own team. I subscribe to that. You know, like, how often do you see coaches that praise a star player because they can yell at the star player? And then you see that coach deriding that or riding that star player on the bench. And when the rest of the team sees that the star player isn't above criticism, it raises everyone else up. Dawn Staley has forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. But I promise you one damn thing. If I'm her and I'm playing Caitlin Clark in Iowa, Caitlin Clark is not going to beat me. We're going to be up on her. The defender is going to be taller than she is. And if she goes by that defender, there is going to be a rotating defender. And if that doesn't work, there's going to be a double team. And if that doesn't work, there's going to be a box and one. Caitlin Clark is going to have that ball leaving her hands. Okay? Every single time, the ball is going to be leaving her hands. And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. If you're a Gamecock fan, seriously, how do you digest that? How do you possibly digest that? Okay, the other thing is this that I want to get to. Folks, when you consider a stat that we shared with you Friday, and also what I've been taking in, right, what I've been taking in over the course of the tournament right now, the cheapest ticket to Iowa, South Carolina, the women's Final Four was $222. The cheapest ticket to Miami and UConn in the men's Final Four was $44. And I wrote on Twitter, because they limit you on characters, the women's game hasn't just arrived, it's surpassed the men. And folks, people exploded. They absolutely, positively exploded. They became so volatile. And, you know, there's a lot more to my take and my opinion than just that. I understand that the men play in a football arena and the women play in an NBA arena. I understand all that, but a ticket selling for $44 to the Final Four tells you they can't sell the tickets. It's an apples and orange comparison because you don't know how many seats the women could sell for Iowa, South Carolina. Here's what I do know, okay? Here's what I do know and I'm aware of. ESPN reported that Iowa, South Carolina in women's basketball was the most watched college basketball game on any ESPN network since Duke and North Carolina in 2008. in 2008. Iowa, South Carolina was the highest rated basketball game on an ESPN platform in 15 years. And like what came out of the woodwork, okay, was and I was floored by this. And I guess, folks, and you can tell me like why this happened, and you can also tell me like how you think and how you feel about this. But everybody makes everything about politics nowadays, right? Everything is either a declaration of who you are as being toward the left or toward the right. That's what everybody is and everything is about these days, and I don't get it. I don't understand it. But evidently, like defending women and women's sports is a left take. And so to be on the Republican side, you don't do that. Well, brother, I'm in the middle. I'm a registered independent. I have voted democratically. I have voted for Republican presidential candidates. I have voted for both. Okay? And I don't subscribe to this nonsense. I stand for what's right. I don't take sides. I don't have teams. You know that if you listen to this show. Like, I like the Gators. That's my personal team. But with Clemson and South Carolina, we will praise them. We will criticize them where warranted, right? The number of misogynistic, sexist meatheads who replied to that take that the women's game has surpassed the men's and don't want to give women credit for anything is astounding. It is astounding. The women are beating the men in multiple key areas. Okay, multiple key areas. And I'm going to address those areas when Offsides comes back. You know, like to me, you know, you look at the prices of the Final Four tickets. You look at the ratings that ESPN are putting out. You look at some of the other facets around the game. Is it a hateful comment to say that this year in 2023, the women have outdone the men? I didn't realize that was going to start World War III. Yet here we are. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. don't you bring us back with that? Oh, sorry. We were on? Yeah.
Mark, you know how you like to do instant reviews on this show of TV shows that are like 4 years old that you're just now watching for the first time?
Oh, yeah.
This weekend, I went and saw John Wick Chapter 4. Now, I know like Trey Davis and Steven and all you guys watching on the YouTube channel and all the streams all over the world and everybody who's listening on your phone and on the Odyssey app and over the air. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. Not going to give away any spoilers for John Wick Chapter 4. But it is the most absurd action movie I've seen in a long, long time. Like, do you remember the first time you saw the first John Wick? You're like, oh man, this guy's just a badass. Like, I get where he's coming from. He was a badass, and then somebody killed his dog. You don't mess with people's dogs. Spoiler alert, by the way, for John Wick 4 or John Wick 1, but that one was like 10 years ago. You should have seen it by now. Like, you understood where the guy was coming from, right? You don't mess with people's dogs. And then you're like, wow, this guy's just really that good. And then with Chapter 2, Chapter 3, and Chapter 4, it just got more and more and more absurd. Like, oh, now this guy can only get shot in one place on his body to die because he's got a bulletproof business suit on. And man, that's a nice cut of a suit. Did he get that at Smith & James? Like, it just got to the point that you could shoot anyone anywhere on their body except their face, and they're going to be fine. And Chapter 4, it just gets more and more and more absurd every single time.
You're the sucker who keeps going to it.
I only saw, did I see one in theaters? Yeah, I think I saw one in theaters, and then 2 and 3 on streaming. And I didn't love them. I didn't love them. Like, they turned John Wick, which was a great story that didn't need sequels, into Fast and the Furious. Like, those movies have gotten more and more absurd with each one of them. The stunts get bigger. The explosions get bigger. The cast gets bigger. Vin Diesel's head gets bigger. Like, I don't understand why they needed to go more and more absurd with it. Like, why can't you just keep giving people what they liked and loved about the first one? But anyway, it's a good movie. If you just want to shut your brain off and watch kind of like, it's not really an old school action flick in the sense of like a Stallone action flick, because even those were still rooted in some kind of reality. But like, it's just gone so far. It's jumped the shark so long ago that like they're like, all right, I guess we'll just keep going bigger and bigger.
So if this was the Rap Snack scale, Diesel, scale of 1 to 10, what was the movie?
I would give Chapter 1 a 9. Chapter 2 was probably a 7. Chapter 3 was a 4. No, Chapter 3 was a 3. It was pretty bad. But then Chapter 4 gets you back up to about a 6.
Here's what I'm going to ask you guys, okay? I recently finished Physical 100. It's on Netflix, and it's a Japanese import, but it's like 100 of the best athletes in Japan who compete in all different things to see which one is the last of the 100 left standing. And they have like wrestlers and mixed martial artists and 4 major sport athletes and bodybuilders. And they have everything on there. They compete in every single possible category. And I just finished it, and it is freaking fantastic. You know, like, and one part of the beauty of the show is it's hard for us a lot of times to find shows that I like, Angela likes, and Jackson likes. Jackson is 5. And I can't tell you the number of days like the show will be over. I'll walk in and there's some cartoon dinosaur on, and I'm like, oh, God. That is the biggest adjustment from going from a forever bachelor to being a married man with a son, is you walk through and there's dinosaurs on TV all the time. And so anyway, that's my recommendation to you. Okay. That's my recommendation to you. I'm asking for your recommendations. Okay. Movies or shows. And here's my promise to you. Whatever comes in on the text line right now, I will watch every single one of them. Okay? I will watch every single one of them. I will give every show at least one episode. And the one that I like the most that you guys suggest to me that person's going to get special recognition on the show. Okay? Going to give you a lot of props, a lot of shout outs, things like that. So, what are your TV or movie recommendations for us? Netflix, etc. Now, what we have at home is we have Netflix and we have YouTube TV. Every once in a while, Diesel, what is the Ted Lasso? Fantastic. We're going to get Apple TV to get the next season of Ted Lasso, which is apparently out right now. But if you have a show recommendation for us or a movie recommendation for us, I'm going to take all of your recommendations, my friends, every single one, and I will watch them. And I will give your recommendation a score. Here's what I need. Via the text line, I need your name. I need your recommendation. Okay? Your name and recommendation on the text line. And when I watch it, I will give it a score. Okay? If I couldn't get through the movie, the score is not going to be great. Okay? If I didn't want to watch more than one episode, the score might not be great. But I will watch each and every one of your recommendations that come in. So what are your show recommendations for us? 71307 on the text line. Here's how you do it, folks. You open your phone, you go to your text screen, and when you go to write in a number, you write in 71307, you hit enter, then you start your text with the word fan. Okay, so you text to the number 71307, start your text with the word fan, and away you go with your text message. Taking your recommendations now. Yes, Steve.
So you just got a new phone recently.
I did.
Did you buy it from a person on the internet or did you buy it from a store?
Store.
You may have free Apple TV for a year.
Do I?
Very often when you buy a new Apple device, or it doesn't have to be a brand new Apple device, if you bought it from a retail store, very often they hook you up with free Apple TV for a year. So you might want to check that out. You might have it for free and not realize it.
How about that? How about that? That'd be amazing. All right, your recommendations, welcome. Let's see here. Texter says Sex and the City. I'll check it out. This texter just wants to waste my time. Texter says, Mark, The Mandalorian, spend $10 for Disney Plus, binge it. So says Dan B. Dan B, I appreciate the recommendation. Like movies are a lot easier for me than dropping, $10 a month, another monthly thing, right?
How about Taxi Cab Confessional? You should watch that show.
I have seen that.
You
I
did?
actually do find that fascinating.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I do find that fascinating.
You never know what they're going to say.
You never know what's going to happen in the back of a taxi. Jacob T is coming in with The Night Agent. Perry Mason, Season 1, HBO 2020.
Is this where we are in modern entertainment? We're rehashing shows from the 50s and 60s?
Evidently, that's where we are. We have no new ideas. Guys, I appreciate all the HBOs and everything like that. But again, like I can watch any movie. I can watch any show. And we have Netflix. Okay? That's what we've got.
You ever see the shows they're advertising during the Final Four? And you're like, who's watching this crap? Like they keep advertising a show called Fire Country with special guest so-and-so country singer on this week's Fire Country.
Kane Brown, you saw the same commercial.
I'm not watching that crap. Let's be real. Network TV shows stink.
Right.
Most 99% of network TV shows stink. And you can watch the previews, you can watch a trailer, you can watch the commercial, and you can say, man, that show stinks. I can tell. Like, I'm not even going to waste my time on a show called Fire Country.
Yeah, you're Diesel. You're right.
Like, I don't care about the personal lives of firefighters.
Yeah, I said to Angela, I said, isn't this just the guy we saw at the well a couple weeks ago? He was just at the well. Kane Brown.
Well, he's also on the show because they got to promote the upcoming CMA thing where they're mixing together with rock stars. Like, it's all just promotional garbage.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we're going to get some angry text. I love Fire Country. I love it.
So we're taking your recommendations. I'm going to see. This is what I love. Texter says The Night Agent on Netflix. You've given me something I have, Texter. What is your name, Texter? Make sure you please put your name on your text. When you text us, send us your name and your recommendation. Remember, I have YouTube TV and I have Netflix. That's what we got back home, and we have Amazon Prime Video back at home. Here we go. Cobra Kai on Netflix, TJ and Greer. Here we go. Getting a lot of good recommendations coming in. So we will keep the recommendations coming. My pledge to you is I will watch every single one of them. Okay. I will give each one double-digit minutes. So realize if you are yanking my chain, you are wasting 10 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. All right.
You know how we make our millions and we get out of this racket called radio, Mark?
How's that?
Is we strike a deal with all of these streaming services to be able to put on like a 10-minute at a time preview of a TV show. But it can't be cut. Like, right? It has to be 10 minutes that exist in an episode. You got 10 minutes to hook me. And after that, like it goes to something else. 10 minutes of Fire Country. And if you don't like that, 10 minutes of Cobra Kai. And if you don't like that, 10 minutes of Better Call Saul. And then, that thing seems like a great idea.
It's like speed dating, Diesel.
Yeah.
You speed date every single show.
Speed date shows.
And you and I know because we work in the business, but I don't know if you guys do as listeners and as TV viewers, movie watchers. Do you realize, right, whenever they hook you right before a commercial, it's called a tease. And we do the exact same thing in radio. I hook you, I try to hook you before the commercial comes so that you have to stay. It's what I call driveway moments, right? I want you to be in your driveway and you can't go in because you need to hear what we have to say. But the beauty is now you can go in because you got the Odyssey app on your phone. So you can just continue listening, right? There you go. So recommendations thus far: Sex and the City, The Mandalorian, the founder of Really Stains My Hands. I would recommend the show The Last of Us on HBO. Fantastic, Brian. Fantastic. Let's see. Perry Mason season 1 on HBO, The Night Agent, The Yellow Jackets, Ted Lasso, For All Mankind, Trying and Slow Horses. My name is Keith. Check out a movie called The Warrior's Way. Texter says, Mark, open your settings on your phone and underwear. It says your name will be services included with purchase. Very nice.
Underwear. Don't talk about Mark's underwear.
That's right. Texter says The Night Agent on Netflix. Texter says Cobra Kai on Netflix. That's TJ and Greer. Max in Fountain Inn says Ghosts. Join the 7 Seas and learn how to pirate different platforms. The Expanse on Amazon Prime Video. So says Joey M. Will in Boiling Springs says, not sure if it's available on your networks, but Punisher was the best series ever. Will in Boiling Springs, wait until 5-year-old is asleep. See, Will, looking out for me. I greatly appreciate, Will. You're looking out for me. This is really, really important stuff.
Will is absolutely right. All of over the last 10 years or so, most of the superhero stuff has been total garbage. But Netflix's two or three seasons of Daredevil and their 1 season of Punisher, fantastic. They were dark.
Texter says another recommendation. Pappy says Night Agent. And another texter says, see, this texter is trying to get me divorced. He says Cat House, the series about the Vegas Bunny Ranch. That's what I think it is, right, Diesel?
Probably, yeah. There's some really, fascinating documentaries, and you've got a good wife when they'll sit down and watch it with you. I got hooked into a series. I think they made 2 of them. They might have made 3 at this point, but it was a documentary called After Porn Ends, and it's all about the stars, what they do after they stop acting. But you get like the backstory, how they got into it, what their experience was, some good, some bad. And then what's going on with their lives after the fact. It's actually it's an interesting kind of human story of how you get into something that most people consider extremely sleazy.
Well, yeah, that can get you in trouble, man. It can get you in trouble. Diesel, I also think that what we do, our identity is wrapped up in what we do more than other professions. And so I imagine that's the same with porn, right? Your identity is wrapped up in you having some level of fame from making the beast with 2 backs with a bunch of people, right? The hardest thing for me when I lost my dream job back in 2015 in Tampa was like my identity was wrapped up in what, and so when that was taken away, it was like, who am I without this microphone and without an audience to speak to every single day. And I went to therapy for that. It was hard and it was challenging. And, you hear people say all the time, like, my career is my, being a basketball player is my job. It's not who I am. You hear that saying all the time, right? But like, when that's how you identify yourself, right? When you are a public speaker, it's tough when it's taken away. Brutally tough when it's taken away. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us on the show. Up next, is it true that the champion has been dethroned? That, my friends, is on the flip side here on the show that gives you both sides. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show joins us with a Gamecock perspective of the debacle on Friday night. We're looking forward to hearing from him on that and so much more. Coming up in the very next segment of the show, a lot of great show recommendations coming in. Ladies and gentlemen, I really, really, really appreciate it. Hurricane Jeff says, if you have seen the first one, then try Coming to America Part 2. Coming to America is one of my all-time favorite movies. But we just had a discussion, Jeff, about sequels last week. They suck. I mean, like Coming to America Part 2 is worth the watch, really? Pappy says, Mindhunter Season 1 and 2, and can't believe they cut Season 3. Another texter says, Joseph G. Reacher on Amazon Prime, but texter.
John Reacher.
Oh.
Or Jack, it sounds like Jack Reacher.
Maybe this is his name, Diesel. I don't know. It's the text just says Joseph G. Reacher on Amazon Prime.
Jack Reacher, phenomenal show. It's a really good show.
Okay.
But who is it? The texter who said, let's see, not the Coming to America one. Mindhunter. Yeah, the fact that they cut Mindhunter Season 3 right as they were getting to the ultimate quarry, the ultimate thing he was chasing after, that sucked. Because Mindhunter Seasons 1 and 2 were really good.
You know, there's a lot of shows like that, like Freaks and Geeks and stuff, Diesel, that never got renewed. And then they developed like a cult following after they were canceled.
There was a show, I'm trying to think which show it was. There was a show that was like that ran for 4 or 5 seasons, and the network ended up canceling it before they ultimately got to finish it. And then I think Netflix or Hulu picked it up and actually finished the show.
Beautiful.
They said, do it quickly. You know, you got one season, finish this thing up quickly. So there were a few little loose ends here and there that didn't really work out. But yeah, it's awesome to see, you know, when the fans can get a network to pick it up and finish the show that the original network didn't want to do.
So, folks, to get back to the task at hand here, in my opinion, the women's game has surpassed the men's this year. I'm not saying it's surpassed it all time. If you've listened on the show, you know that my belief is that the women's game would be enhanced if the rim was lowered to 9 feet, and if there were alley-oops, and if there were slam dunks, the women's game would be enhanced. But the women's game is already better and above the men's in a number of key areas. And I'll give you an example here, okay? The women can't go to the NBA for 4 years. The men can go one and done. Back in the day, the men could always go one and done, or they could declare for the draft out of high school. It's always been one of those two. Back in the day, the players just didn't do that. I distinctly remember Shaquille O'Neal coming back to LSU for his junior year. So he was at LSU for 3 seasons. And in that era, you were at school for either 3 or 4 years. And so it didn't matter that the rule was that you could really go out of high school. You could declare for the NBA out of high school. Nobody did that because it wasn't viewed as being the smart thing to do. You get an education and complete your promise to mom, right? And make your family proud and, you know, set yourself up for your life because professional sports isn't going to be there, and round out your game and, you know, become bigger and stronger and more polished in everything you do. Well, in the women's game, you've got to be in college for 4 years, not 3, 4.
It shows you what development does for a team and for individual players. You don't get that development in men's college basketball, and there has got to be a way. The men's game will eventually falter and die if they cannot figure out a way to keep stars in this game longer. I don't know what they're going to have to do. Maybe they're going to have to cut some sort of deal with the NBA essentially to get rid of the G League, but still you're going to have your stars heading off to the NBA after 1 year. They got to figure out a way to do this and not get sued. That's the problem. Anything that is going to be seen as taking away agency or taking away control or ability to make money from a college athlete will subsequently come with a lawsuit. And that's what they've got to figure out.
That is exactly what they're going to have to figure out, man. And that's where they are. Look, to me, the women's game is beating the men's game in drama, intrigue, star power, no one and done. Okay. The men's tournament had record low ratings in the Elite Eight this year. Where am I wrong? How are the women not beating the men in star power? All the ladies are there 4 years. They have to be. Now they have an extra COVID year. So Caitlin Clark is going to be a senior next year. She's got to come back to school. And then Diesel, they're saying there's probably better than a 50-50 shot she comes back for her COVID year.
If she's got NIL opportunities for her COVID year, why not? Why not bank? I don't know how much NIL she might have. I guarantee you it's a solid little amount. So if she can walk out of college banking 25, 50, 100 grand, hell yeah, I would stay in college.
Well, I'll tell you what, Diesel. I checked out her Twitter page on Friday. Okay, on Friday. On Friday on Twitter, Caitlin Clark had 39,000 followers. Now she has 108,000 followers.
Wow.
Caitlin Clark gained 70,000 followers on Twitter since we were last on the air. Can you imagine that? Her whole life up until this point as the best player in women's college basketball, 39,000, now 108. So, think of the platform. And if I'm Caitlin Clark and this is again, back to the point at hand here, folks, the platform that she has in college basketball, is that not bigger than any platform the WNBA can give her?
Yeah.
We're all watching the women's Final Four. When's the last time you watched a WNBA final, Diesel? The next time will be the first, right?
I don't think I've ever watched a WNBA game.
Right. The next time will be the first. So go to the WNBA right now and make money, but outside of your local markets, you're kind of forgotten, right? Kind of forgotten. Or you can stay in college hoops, stay in the women's game, and you can reap the benefits. You can reap the benefits of the drama, the intrigue, the star power, the fact that there's continuity, team building, no one and done, right? To me, guys, when you factor in the demand of the tickets, when you factor in all of the things I just shared with you, okay, to me, this year, the women have outdone the men. The men are playing catch up.
Do you think one day we'll see the physicality of women's basketball change, that even if they don't lower the rim, which would be the instantaneous quick way to do it, but if they keep getting taller, incrementally taller, an inch taller over 3 or 4 seasons, an inch taller than that over the next 6 seasons, an inch taller than that over the next 10 years, do you think we'll have a game where even if it's not many of the players, but some of the players will be able to dunk? Now, the problem that it's funny that you kind of had it out with the Iowa, the beat writer that we had on from Iowa last week. He took real offense to the notion that the average college basketball, female college basketball player was 5'6", but you cannot take any offense to just the explosiveness of the male athletes versus the explosiveness. And we're talking about jumping ability, the ability to jump higher. The female basketball players just don't have. It's just part of the physiology of female athletes. They just don't have that kind of physiology. Yeah. And you just Googled it. How tall is the average women's basketball player? And the answer is 5'6". It's like, I don't know. I think they're like 5'10", maybe 5'11". Hey, they might be 9 feet. I don't know. They're taller than you think they are. But
no, yeah, he did say that. But and Diesel, I don't see people 5'6" playing for South Carolina.
No.
But this says, according to NCSA Sports, that the average NCAA Division I women's basketball player is 5'6". So
and that means everybody from South Carolina down to Wofford.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's 100%
Presbyterian.
right.
Yeah, you got shorter players not playing at these big schools. Now, the elite schools will get the tallest and best athletes. That's always the way that it is. But you can't base your average for what you think the height is of women's college basketball players on just the elite programs, because there's not that many of them. They're growing. There's not that many of them.
Yeah, like it's something, guys. So when I say to you, can you guys just help me figure out the why here? Okay. When I say to you that, the women's game has surpassed the men, and I list all the reasons why that has happened, can you explain to me why people would get so upset about that? To me, in terms of my level of interest, my level of rooting interest, the women's tournament is better. Then you factor in the ticket prices, you factor in the star power, no one and done, recognizable faces. I never thought we would be in a place, folks, where I could name more players in the women's game than I can the men. And we're here right now. Like we are at that place right now because of the change year in and year out on the men's side. I don't know what the transfer portal numbers, Diesel, are, but I can't imagine the women's game is even having a fraction of the number of players that are transferring on the men's side. Can't imagine.
No. And look, the men's tournament, I think it was a combination of a lot of different factors all at the same time that the Blue Bloods were not in it, which I still don't see as none of these things are like bad things in a bubble, in a vacuum. But when you combine them all together, that's when you get lowered interest and you get lower ticket prices and lower demand for it. You've got smaller teams split all the way across the country, smaller programs split all the way across the country without the Blue Bloods to come buy tickets. You're putting it in a massive NFL stadium, which did you happen to see what the capacity was for the men's game?
70,000.
70,000. Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. You're tripling sometimes the capacity of these NBA stadiums where they're playing the women's games. That is the appropriate sized venue for this. Stop putting these games in massive, massive venues. I mean, think about it. You could be 150 yards away from the court. If you're all the way up in the nosebleeds, you are physically a long way from that. What are you getting out of that?
Right.
As a fan, you're not getting anything out of buying tickets for this other than being able to say, I was at this game.
If you were at the Final Four this year, Diesel, you'd be there watching the games on your phone.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Oh, wait a minute. I'm here. What am I doing? Because they're ants from that far away. It doesn't even make any sense.
It's a big mistake. It's a big mistake.
And they do it every year, and they can't sell the tickets, so they lower the prices, and it becomes really hard to compare the two. We got a text that says, Mark, comparison is the thief of it. Joy. Enjoy both. I do, texter, I do. But I'm letting you know that, to me, this year, the women's game surpassed the men. The men can't try again until next year. Chris Phillips is joining us next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Yeah, guys, I cannot believe how badly Dawn Staley was outcoached in that game in the Final Four. I couldn't believe it. You know, I've been watching Charles Barkley for 20 years, and whenever a team has a player like that, he always says, I don't care. That player's not going to beat me. That player's not going to beat me. The ball is coming out of their hand. And South Carolina allowed Caitlin Clark to score 53% of the points against them, 41 out of 77. You know, it was one-on-one, and when Caitlin Clark got by the first defender, she had an open path for a layup every single time. You know, obviously you're going to play bump and run coverage on Caitlin. Obviously you're not going to give her any space like you wouldn't give Steph Curry any space. But, man, the fact to me that there was no plan to double team, there was no adjustments. You know, the fact that Kim Mulkey of LSU said, well, how are you going to beat Iowa? And she said, we're going to take the shots that Iowa gives us, unlike South Carolina, who didn't. You know, it's like, it's hard for me, man, because I like I said, Dawn Staley's forgotten more basketball than I'll ever know. But I'll damn sure promise you one thing. Caitlin Clark isn't scoring 41 points on my team in the Final Four. It's not going to happen. The ball is getting out of her hands. Joining us right now is the host of the Spurs Up Show. You can check it out on YouTube. You can follow him on Twitter at the Spurs Up Show as well. Chris Phillips joins us here on the show. So, Chris, man, I found the coaching performance of Dawn Staley to be frankly embarrassing. And I think for some reason we're in a culture where you're not, you know, like, you're not supposed to speak badly of anybody, but then coaches will say all the time, they'll criticize their best player. And that's if you can criticize your star player, that's viewed as a positive trait. I think Dawn Staley's wide open for criticism right here, man. I thought that was that plan, that game plan for Caitlin Clark was devoid of rational thought for me.
Well, Mark, first things first, appreciate you having me on, my friend. And yeah, you look back at that game on Friday, and I will say that, yeah, I mean, anytime you lose, and especially when the expectations are what they are for South Carolina women's basketball, which if you don't win the national championship, the season's a bit of a disappointment, right? But you certainly feel that, you know, across sports, that at times it seems that criticism is, you know, there are some that can handle the heat and there's some that cannot. And obviously, you know, Mark, and I think that's why you and I get along so well. We run towards it, not away from it. So I think certainly it's fair to question the decision-making or the way that they attacked Caitlin Clark. I mean, I think that was one of the reasons I felt so confident, and many Gamecock fans did feel so confident going in that game. They felt like Dawn Staley and company would have a plan. They would not let one player beat them. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Now, tip your caps on to Caitlin Clark. She was fantastic, but you could just tell early on in that game that, you know, I told you before, right, Mark, when you came out to one of the watch parties, that South Carolina had gotten down before, but they have been able to find their way back and sort of overcome sluggish starts. But it looked different from the start of that game, and Caitlin Clark, certainly you tip your cap to her, and I mean, she's a fantastic player, but the Gamecocks, simply put, did not make the adjustments. Their lack of shooters got exposed, and that'll be something I think they've got help on the way, reinforcements coming in and recruiting, but certainly their deficiencies, and I think they were able to get past all season long. They came to the forefront against Iowa.
But Chris, you mean to tell me you're not watching that game saying, the hell are we doing? Double her, yeah. Get the ball out of her hands. What? And then if you're not going to double her, Chris, how do you not make an immediate adjustment to have help roll over when she gets past the first defender? I just couldn't believe how many layups there were. And it just seemed to me like, you know, if I'm a Gamecock fan, I'm having a really hard time digesting how the Lady Gamecocks beat LSU 88-64 6 weeks ago, 2 days before Valentine's Day. And now you've got to sit there and swallow LSU winning a national championship. That hurts, man.
Yeah, no, it does. No, for sure, man. For sure. I mean, Carolina fans I've talked to, it's been really, really tough to stomach, you know what I mean, over the weekend and everything, and watching LSU do what they did yesterday. And like you mentioned, Mark, that's a team you beat by 24 points. But, I mean, I do agree with you. I'll say this, that the lack of adjustment, you know, was it stubbornness? Was it a little bit of hard-headedness from Dawn Staley, just kind of believing in her players and her system and what they had done all year? Because I do agree with you. I mean, it's just crazy to think you went into that ball game just knowing that, hey, we cannot let this one player beat us. And not only did she beat you, I mean, she was the entire team. You know what I mean? Like you mentioned, over 50% of the points she had, all the assists she had. I mean, it was just up and down the court. And you could argue, Mark, I mean, I know South Carolina had the lead there for a couple of instances in the second half, but Iowa dominated that game. They really did. I mean, Iowa was in control of that when it looked like South Carolina was the 3 seed and Iowa was the 1 seed in that game. It looked like Iowa was the double-digit favorite, and the Gamecocks were trying to pull the upset, if you will. So it was really surprising. Honestly, Mark, I still think back on it, it feels shocking. But, again, they'll have all offseason to kind of stew over that one, and the way too early top 25 came out, and the Gamecocks are ranked 7th. So Carolina will have a lot to prove next year, losing Aaliyah Boston. You're probably going to lose Zaya Cook. I think Bree Beal will be back, and they got some, talented freshmen on the way. But, certainly, Mark, I think this is one that's going to really hurt all offseason, and you just wonder, just what if you would have made those adjustments, could you possibly be hoisting the trophy right now? We're having a totally different conversation.
So Aaliyah Boston has this program has been so your feeling is she keeps saying what's the very latest on her, Chris?
So Aaliyah Boston has declared. She put out a graphic yesterday on social media. It's officially official. She has So they had 48 hours. So everyone at this point, whether it be Aaliyah Boston, Zaya Cook, any of the others, anybody who had decisions upcoming, because the freshies, as they call them, that group that all came in together, I think it was 4 or 5 players, they all could have returned for their COVID year. Aaliyah Boston's the only one that has actually come out publicly and said she is going to the 2023 WNBA draft. And so last night at midnight was the cutoff. And in regards to Aaliyah Boston, we know for sure that she is head of the draft. I know that she said that, possibly she was thinking about it, hadn't decided. But I mean, Mark, Dawn Staley herself told her that she would tell her to go in regards to, what she's dealing with at the college level versus what she'll see at the pro level in her game. And, which I thought was kind of interesting for Dawn Staley to say. Why would you not welcome her back if she wanted to come back? But, I think Aaliyah Boston, she had a fantastic collegiate career and one of the greatest we've ever seen. And she's done damn near everything you could do in college basketball. So I think it was the right decision for her to go. But Aaliyah Boston has officially declared. And again, what a fantastic career for her.
She's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the WNBA draft. The last thing I'd seen on that, Chris, was her saying after the game that she was going to do some thinking about it. I didn't realize that the decision was coming
the next day.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was coming the next day. But that is, so that's a lot to overcome for Dawn Staley. Certainly a lot to prove, and exciting for a Gamecock fan, honestly, being the hunter instead of the hunted to end of the season. The Gamecock baseball team got run ruled, Chris. How did that happen?
Sometimes in baseball, Mark, it's just not your night. Noah Hall uncharacteristically doesn't get out of the 3rd inning, a tough start for him. And I think a Mississippi State team, too, Mark, that had lost 18 consecutive SEC games after the Gamecocks beat them on Thursday night. Give the Bulldogs some credit, man. It's a really proud program. I mean, you watch them. It's kind of crazy to think they lost 18 straight at that point because they got guys coming out of the bullpen, 95, 96. You don't go to Mississippi State to play baseball if you suck, Marc Ryan. That's breaking news for all parties. But it was just one of those nights where it wasn't your night. Gamecocks did some uncharacteristic things. Again, Noah Hall not good, made errors in the field. The sticks went cold. If you want, it's just the SEC, Mark. I mean, it's a really tough conference, and it's tough to go undefeated in the league. It's impossible, really. And then Mississippi State was obviously due to win one. So I think it's just one of those, a simple put, Mark. And I know for some people it'll be maddening because they're like, I need an explanation, but it's like it just wasn't your night. It just wasn't your night. And thankfully, you're able to salvage the series and win 2 of 3. And anytime you win 2 of 3, Marc Ryan, on the road, that is a successful SEC weekend. And it now sets up, 8-1 to your first 9. I think a dream start. All Gamecocks would agree. Now you get into this gauntlet, right? With number 1 LSU coming to town Thursday through Saturday. You then next weekend go on the road to take on, I believe, the 4th-ranked Vanderbilt Commodores for a 3-game set. And then your Florida Gators, Mark. They come to town the following weekend, the 3rd-ranked team in the country for another Thursday through Saturday series. So we're really going to find out what South Carolina baseball is all about. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, man. It's going to be incredible to see.
Chris, what do you make of so much of college baseball's center, like the focus and all the best teams sort of shifting now to the Southeast? 10 years ago, there was a lot of California baseball that was in the top 25. There was a lot of Midwest and like, it just feels like now, especially if you look at the NCAA top 25 right now, I think over half of it is either in North or South Carolina combined. And then when you add neighboring states to it, like this area, it just has a lockdown on college baseball. How did that happen? And like, is it just SEC money is really pushing more and more SEC programs to have the ability to compete at this level?
Well, Diesel, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you do want to give credit and respect to, there's some teams on the West Coast like Stanford, Cal State, Fullerton, those with a lot of tradition and history. Of course, you talk Texas, Oklahoma, and the Big 12, Texas Tech, Okie State. But really, it's all about the Southeast, the SEC, the ACC. And I think a lot of that, number one, has to do with weather. Guys down here can play all year round. And, I've always said the best players come from the Southeast, right, where you're not stuck indoors in the snow up in the Northeast and what have you. And, I definitely think, too, man, it's just a commitment to baseball. I even talked to Gamecock fans about when South Carolina won back-to-back national championships and went to 3 straight. The SEC looked completely different. Teams were not investing in baseball the way they are now. Now everybody's got a multi-million-dollar facility. Like, everybody's renovating. Everybody's committed to winning on the diamond. And that's why the SEC is so good. So I think definitely the commitment to winning, especially in the Southeastern Conference, has risen across the board. Again, you're seeing multiple teams with facility upgrades. We're seeing it in football, right, as well. The SEC, it's just there's a different type of level of commitment to winning across all sports, that's for sure. But, I think, again, in the Southeast as a whole, again, you can play this sport year-round. I think, guys, obviously athletes are getting bigger, better, faster, stronger, and these conferences are getting touted as the best of the best. And that's where the best players want to go, right? You look at college baseball, again, on the West Coast and even in the Midwest, and it's like, how much do people really care? Are they making the same type of investment as these schools in the Southeast are, right? So I think that honestly has a lot to do with it. The best players want to go to places where they care about college baseball, and those tend to be the teams in the SEC, ACC, and across the Carolinas as well.
Chris, I asked you last week. We asked for a vote, and we spoke about this with Clemson baseball coach Erik Bakich right at the start of the show today. I said, Coach, we had an informal poll. What's the second most popular sport in Clemson? And you won. Congratulations. You're the second most popular sport there. It floored me, Chris. I asked you the same question, and you reminded me of a poll that I want to post on our own Facebook page. The second most popular sport at South Carolina. I'll post that when this segment is done. You said to me, Chris, that it was close, but it was, in your opinion, baseball second, women's basketball third, men's basketball fourth, women's soccer fifth, is what you shared with me. How crazy is it to you, Chris, that men's basketball is not even on the medal stand at both Clemson and South Carolina? How crazy is that, man? This is easily the second most popular collegiate sport, dollar-wise, rating-wise, etc., nationwide, easily number 2. And it's nowhere close to that at either Clemson or South Carolina. How do we get here?
It is hard to believe, Mark, that it's true at both schools, right? Not just one or the other. And it's something that, we've come to accept at this point as reality. Therefore, we don't spend a whole lot of time questioning it. But you're right. It's weird. It's just weird. Because there's really no reason why a South Carolina or a Clemson should not be able to field, a pretty good basketball product on a year in, year out basis. I don't know why it's not a priority. I don't know why it's not something that's more invested in. Football is king. We get that. I don't know if it's just because for both schools, baseball took off before basketball did. And maybe if basketball would have had the success before baseball did for the two schools, maybe basketball is the second most popular sport. And, there's a commitment to it. And we look at it a completely different way, but it's just not the case. You know what I mean? And I will say to the Gamecock side of things, the Gamecocks had success under Frank McGuire. They had some success in the 90s and early 2000s. And, it wasn't major success, but it was some success. So, it's I think if we had the answer, Mark, I don't think it'd be the case necessarily, right? For it to be the fourth or fifth most popular sport on campus at both schools is pretty crazy, right? It is pretty wild. I think schools get labeled, you're this you, you're this you. You're a football school, you're a baseball school, you're a basketball school, whatever. But for both to kind of write off men's basketball and it to be a footnote, heck, in Columbia, Mark, we just talked, women's basketball is far more popular than men's basketball. Now, Lamont Paris, I think, will work to change that. Not that it's bad that women's basketball has the popularity it does, but be right there with them, obviously, right? But it is crazy because, again, there's really no reason or excuse that that one, if not both of these teams can't be, good products year in, year out. It just, for whatever reason, just has not happened.
Chris Phillips, the Gamecocks have now added 2 Citadel transfers. I'm not sure. Chris, it's not looking great for Florida basketball either, man. Florida's 2023 class is 81st in basketball. They have 1 3-star and 1 2-star commits. It is tough sledding when you fall off the ledge there as a program. It is very, very tough sledding. Hey, man, have a good week, man. Still, hell of a season for the Lady Gamecocks. A Final Four season will always go down as a historic season. I still remain perplexed as to how it played out. Thanks, Chris, for joining us.
Mark, you're the man. I appreciate you, Diesel. Y'all have a good one. Have a great week.
All right, take care. You do the same. We've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
That is going to do it for our YouTube stream today.
Hey, YouTube.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to be chopping this up into smaller bite-sized pieces. Those are going to be trickling out over the next day or two, so make sure you look for those. If you haven't yet and you are here, click that subscribe button. That way, as soon as we go live, and if you turn on those notifications, as soon as we go live, you get that little bling sent right to your phone, and we're live, and you can join in. So thanks for watching the show today. Back tomorrow on Offsides with Diesel and Marc Ryan.